There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a while since I've done a podcast, or Chris was on the last one, so I can say since we've done a podcast. It's for no real reason other than that, like, it is indeed election season, which is worse than cold and flu season, although in Minnesota they line up kind of.
Yeah.
And I've recently made a bit of a choice in my life I'm going to take toxic positivity to an entirely new level. This podcast may actually become as motivational as I pretend it is in the Spotify description where I was just lying. But I'll get into that later. I think my midlife crisis though is going to be a real fun one because it's going to be public. And I am 44 now. I could make it to 88 or so maybe, but like, yeah, it's about midlife. Everything's going good, but I didn't try that hard, so it's not like I'm like, I have a convertible and all this stuff, and I'm like, no, I don't really have anything. I just, so it's like my midlife crisis was basically just getting an office job where Chris blows glass. my out-of-control spiral is just working 40 hours a week, which is insane. But the real one is I'm going to become like a phony spiritual guru that ends up on the news and in jail in the same 24 hours. But anyway, I think I'm good with that now. And I think I'm okay with talking about the absolute cesspool that is American politics a little bit. Although I will also admit that I actually truly haven't been paying as much attention. I'm not like those people that are like, I don't even look, and then proceed to tell you something they saw online about how dumb Kamala Harris is. And I'm like, I think you looked, and I think you care. It's like, I was just about to change the subject to like, a giant yellow shit explosion in China, or whatever. That the more fun things on the news. And by the way, that wasn't racist. It was actually yellow. Like, don't you dare.
I was just thinking today about, because we're talking about something about like the term unspoken rule, because they talk about it in politics, and it was like, kind of did piss me off because I'm like, first off, if it's an unspoken rule, how did you find out about it?
Well, it's written down, and they hang it up everywhere. Yeah.
Somebody told you?
Yeah, did someone tell you? Someone has not been following the first two rules of Fight Club. Oh, it's also almost Halloween, so I can make my same... This also is the Halloween. We're cramming a lot of special episodes into one here, but that's what happens, I guess, when we don't do it for a while. But I made up one of the only tweets I ever did that like got any traction back when it was like regular Twitter in like the teens or whatever. Is I said the first rule of, or the first ghoul of Fright Club is that you don't talk about Fright Club because it's too scary. that grew legs for some weird reason. I don't know what I was on, but it was more than one thing. I'm pretty positive at the time. That one might have been tweeted late at night at the Blue Felix bus, if I had to guess.
Oh man!
Back when Snappy would just hand out some tramadol here and again.
Yeah.
And be up real late, having good ideas.
I gotta give him props because like, of all the cool like custom guitar picks that I've seen people have over the years, he's the only one that's ever just had a guitar pick that just said "Got Tram."
Got Tram. Didn't we used to call him Tram K Ultra because he because he just was sort of not love you, Snappy. We interact on Facebook here and again, and he seems like he's in a good place. I have no idea what qualifies as good for him. He just retired to a giant castle full of chicken fingers or something. Like, I have no idea, but good for him. But man, like,
he literally became the Burger King.
Yeah, and he's the king of something. Yeah, and that's important. Like, he's not living he's not in a pregnant family unit living the trap lord lifestyle under a crawl space in Grampy's house, or a garage, I should say, any longer. I don't think so. That's positive change. However, I do believe he was in that band because he was just a Pez dispenser for extra pills when Grampy couldn't quite make ends meet at the end of the month.
It is funny.
And a few came my way.
When you talk about like people just like living underneath a stage, it's like, I think people think you're talking about like just some joke, and that's happened many times with many people.
Yeah, I think maybe the best reason that this podcast
he had a whole
exists,
little like Section 8 apartment under his fucking
stage. Or it was like Section 4, like, because it was only like you couldn't stand all the way up in there, like. In the old Blue Felix practice space, there was space under the stage that was built in the practice room that more than one person has just lived in, and not one of them had all their teeth, but all of them were either in Blue Felix or a roadie for us or whatever. Which, Again, I think it's the importance that you and I do this podcast. It's like our opinions on things notwithstanding, or maybe withstanding. The interesting thing is, it's like, yeah, you know, it's easy to make fun. It'd be like, oh, you're just two schlubby middle-aged white guys with a podcast. Like, how? Oh, and what's the point of it? Oh, you just talk about whatever you're thinking of. I'm like, yeah, I understand that, but most guys with like beards and Star Wars action figures collections that like do that, even the ones that aren't like toxically like secret Andrew Tate acolytes or whatever like that, it's like, they haven't seen what we've seen. It changes you. So, you know, the stories that we randomly even like refer to without blinking aren't made up typically. Some things are made up, you know, but we usually just make up things that are, you know, fun. But anything in the past is like, oh yeah. That's when we kicked that stripper out of the moving bus going like 50 miles an hour. It's like, yeah, that probably...
She kicked herself out, actually.
That's true, but one time Ben did kick shit dicks right out of the door of the bus, but that girl was such a masochist that I think she liked it. Also, her real nickname was Shit Dicks, and she thought it was funny. And she was kind of hot. So none of that makes any sense on paper.
I don't even know what you're talking about, but I do vaguely remember saying something.
That was that skinny redhead that was like kind of fun. And I think was usually like in like Wisconsin, like lacrosse or somewhere, and like her and this other huge fat guy named Jay, who maybe listens to this. He knows he's a huge fat guy. We all love him, but they were like SMB people, but they'd kind of show up for, which is why Ben was just extra weird to him, because before he was hanging around Blue Felix, he was hanging around that, and that's just what you do, and you know, pushing the boundaries of how randomly disgusting you can be to people, and how they will just come back with a smile on their face, and that part is true. But anyway, like. I digress. I've literally sicked goon. Now there are friends, but because of Blue Felix, I was able to actually like give like a Grand Moff Tarkin order and sick goons on people. Like that's like a thing normally reserved for the ultra rich or huge criminals, not the casual crime types that we are. Like there was that chick that kept singing and then was trying to pee in the bus. And she's like, "Where's your bathroom?" And it's like, "If you piss on this floor." It's like, "No, I just want your bathroom." It's like, "Creature, take her away!" And he just got up like he was remembering a past life and just picked her up and dragged her out of the bus. And I just sat down like that happens every day for me. Just ordering goons around. It shouldn't have happened. I went to like a year and a half of community college and grew up in a trailer park. It's like I should never have that kind of authority, even as a goof. Yep. And there it is.
We had like discount juggalos.
Yeah.
Dollar store juggalos.
We had dollar store juggalos that were much like most things found at the dollar store, were far more dangerous than the name brand kind, because they were made in a country of mysterious origin with lower standards. Lead juggalos, we call them. Lead paint juggalos. That's... Put a pin in that. That's funny for something later. We just haven't run into it yet. But anyhow, yeah, right. Election season. Like, that's happening.
So give us your predictions, John. Who's going to win? Because... I think we can both agree that the real loser is going to be America.
The real loser is going to be America, and I'm not, you know, like everybody at this point sort of knows my opinion, which is that like I just can't go like as bad as like the status quo is or whatever, you know. The people that honestly are like the guy that just shits his pants pretending to work at McDonald's to try to spite someone who he doesn't think really worked at McDonald's just because she didn't put that on her resume to like apply to be the district attorney of like a giant county in LA or whatever, like is like you showed her by like closing the fucking thing down and not actually working there, and then having paid crisis actors come and pretend to buy McDonald's from you, like as like a weird. You spent your time doing that, and you're like, okay, well, that guy's gonna fix everything, and it's like, well, it's not, you know, it's not like Kamala as vice president ever did anything that great. It's like, if I think back to Trump being president, all I remember is COVID. It's like, well, that's not his fault. I'm like, you people have stuck dumber things together. I think that, you know, that's it. That's all I feel like, is like things are gonna be like that again, even if they're not. And also, like, even if that hadn't happened, it's like every fucking Republican president, it just, the economy tanks. Like, it's just, I don't care. Like, it's not like I feel like I'm winning because of that. I'm literally a guy that just invests money. Like, I was talking to Chris about that before. It's like, you know, if you have $1 million, you can turn it into $5 million by just shrewdly investing it and waiting 15 years. Like, you don't even have to fucking lift a finger to do any work. So being that that's how everything works, like, I tend to just look at stuff in a maybe pragmatic lens and kind of be like, well, when this happens, and when this happens, this happens. So I'm like going for this. And also, you know,
But why would you be smart and just invest all that money like that when you could literally just not pay a bunch of people and rip people off to like put your name on the side of a building to trick people into thinking that you own it?
Well, if someone like that came along, I would clearly worship them as a new god and put a picture of him on the side of my expensive pickup truck for an extra $20,000. Those raps ain't cheap. Like, yeah, no, certainly, but unfortunately, no such person exists. Yeah. All we have is the diversity hire woman of color and a very good, solid, old-fashioned Republican candidate like Richard Nixon or whatever. That's clearly what's going on, and so it is a bit of a toss-up, isn't it? Yeah. Like, it's certainly not that thing Chris and I were just making fun of, but,
Nixon at least made some small concerted effort to, like, hide his criminal acts.
He did. He also started the war on drugs and openly admitted what the point of it was for, like on recording. It just surfaced time and time again. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. In the words of like Morty from Rick and Morty, it's like you're as bad as Hitler, but at least Hitler, like, I don't know, cared about Germany or whatever. It's like comparing Trump to Hitler is dumb because it's like he kind of, I think he at least had sort of a vision for it being better and not just saying that and then just trying to get like extra money to piss on prostitutes, which we were discussing before we started, as we do every podcast.
Technically, we don't know that Hitler didn't piss on prostitutes.
That's true, but there's so many documentaries, and it's like people do tend to slander that guy for whatever reason. So it's like you'd think if he had, it might have come up by now, and it's like the one thing he didn't do.
Yeah. But I wonder if you'd even have the patience to take a piss with as much meth as he was doing, too.
There's no way he could piss with the meth mixed with fucking, like, Oxycontin or whatever the 40s version of Oxycontin was. That guy was on, like... He was on everything JFK was on, plus everything that, like... every rock star that takes fistfuls of, like, oxys for, like... He was on everything JFK was on mixed with everything Marilyn Manson was on. Is what like Hitler was doing. And it's just like sitting there like grinding his teeth, like watching Jesse Owens race his Zeppelin or whatever the hell they were doing. Like, yeah, I don't know where I was going with this, but here's the thing. I think what we were talking about earlier is like, we were like, why? Trump could have invested all that money that he inherited, instead of starting all these goofy things with his name on buildings. And Chris is like, and all he really wants to do is pee on prostitutes. And I'm like, you can do that for so cheap, especially he lives in Florida.
Yeah.
It's like the closest you can get to being a prostitute without actually being one is being a living woman in Florida.
Isn't that where the golden shower was invented?
I'm positive. There's whatever the closest trailer park is to Mar-a-Lago, and it's probably not far. There's probably, you can't throw a rock without hitting someone just kind of like, I bought too many scratch-offs, so went over and pushed the doorbell on the back. It's just like, you come to get pissed on? Like, yeah. I can only do $5,000. That's more money than I've ever seen at once. Like, okay. And it's like I'm doing that voice, but that's probably still like a hot 19-year-old that only looks 35 because it's Florida. Which I think is gone now.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I mean, I have like one or two friends there. Or some people moved. I don't know. I think Peter lives in Spain now. Something like that, which is where Wally currently is. Maybe they could hang out.
I'll still be friends with people in Florida.
Well, yeah, whoever's left.
I'll just think less of them.
How could you? I mean, not the younger ones, but the adults that could choose to live somewhere else.
Who was it? Might have been Christian Finnegan or some stand-up comic had a bit about that before, where that it's like Florida should actually be two states because everywhere north of Orlando and like the Panhandle is just the South.
Yeah, that's more south.
It could just be, Mississippi, Alabama, whatever. And he's like, and then everything south of Orlando is just a place where people go when they're done.
Oh, until you get to Miami, and that's where you're just getting started. That's where you can buy really good Coke from the guy who cuts your hair. Like
yeah.
I would, aside from the fact that I never ever would in a million years, like just the way Miami sort of is, I would love to live there. I know there's a lot of retirees there and stuff too, but there's also just people who are just wild animals. Like my favorite, like I've been there, and like one of my favorite things, and this tracks with what I've seen. Cause I played a show there. Yeah. And it was actually, I think it was actually better than okay. I think it was wild for like no reason because that's how some places are.
Yeah.
And SMB did good in Florida, but like there's been multiple like famous comedians podcasts that I've listened to that talk about just doing like whatever that chain is, Zanies or Bananas or fucking, I don't, whatever it is. There's like, or House of Comedy. I don't know. One of those ones where there's like a million of them.
Yep.
And like they kind of book you as like a circuit of just all the franchises or however it works. And they said that everyone, so that's not like a theater full of people that paid top dollar. That's people that maybe paid $5 or whatever it is, and they bought drinks and stuff. But it's like talking to just like, it's like trying to get the attention of like a college frat party that's already out of control. Like the entire time, like no one there is interested in what's happening on stage, even a little. Which is like, if you've only ever been to metal shows or in bands or whatever, you're like, that, I could kind of get, no. Comedy doesn't work like that. It's like people who like start piping up too much usually get thrown out because you're supposed to just like pay attention, because if you interrupt, like the timing gets off and you miss something and it ends up not being funny, so it's like, why be there? Logical enough. It's like a different thing. If you want to like throw a beer at the ceiling, go to a punk show. If you want to hear somebody funny, go sit down at a comedy show. That, whatever, watch a puppet show. Like, but it's just like, you're like, so what do you guys think of this? Like, well, just the entire, for like the whole 3 hours, like there's no one's even regarding, like they might as well just be drinking and doing coke in a laundromat. It's just like there's no, but here's the thing, as bad as that is for whoever's doing comedy right at that moment, like, God, I want to see a show there, because I just love what I like to call nowadays perpetual 2 a.m. at a sleepover energy, where things are just silly, and that's just, if you could live in that bubble.
Yep.
And for those, it's the best way to describe it is sleepover, because it's probably the most relatable thing. 'Cause it also translates to like moments on the tour bus where I'm trying to snuggle with E-Rock in his bunk and saying that I'm devoid of E-Rock, and I'm just on a mix of Ambien and fucking God knows what. I'm just like, I need love from E-Rock, and everyone's filming me. That's sleepover energy right there.
Was it Pascagoula, Mississippi, when we played that place that we were out to like 4 a.m, and then you jumped in their like bar swimming pool naked?
Yeah, it was one of those shitball, like, there's like a volleyball court and a pool behind this dumpy bar that also has like a stage for like shitball bands and like whatever, but they were like really cool to us. Pascagoula, that's why, because that was the place that was like across the street, like shared a fence with a graveyard.
Yeah.
And like,
fun thing I remember about Pascagoula, and I normally would like relish in any opportunity to like make fun of someone, but the cop that was working the show was actually super nice. It was like the town cop.
Wearing sandals on duty.
Sandals on duty, and I'm gonna walk the line of like legality here, because I'm not going to insinuate that he may or may not have almost been convinced to let John
play with his gun. Yeah, he was almost there until he figured out how drunk I actually was, which I'm ultra good at. I'm really good at masking if I have to in real life. And I have like a special gene for when there's cops I'm talking to, where I just seem dead sober all of a sudden. But I couldn't keep it up. I was just having too much fun. Then I noticed he was wearing sandals, and I'm like, it'd be funnier to be. He was like, no. But he put a Blue Felix sticker on his cop car. I don't know that was a cop. That might have been like just
a dickhead,
somebody with a gun and like a cop uniform and a fake cop car that he got a hold of. And just like, keep an eye on the bar. He's like, yeah, okay. Like they give him like $10 an hour to hang out there and just be like, tell him to put his clothes on.
Yeah.
Yeah, which they did. They didn't arrest me for that, which they should have, by the way. Yeah. It's like, you feel like when you're in a band, you're just on this TV show, but
I wish there was still video of that, because there was somebody had video of that fucking other guy screaming right when he jumped in. That son of a bitch is naked.
Just that awesome like 400-pound but with a really high voice. So, that son of a bitch is naked.
He's naked.
Just that huge dude, and his nickname is Tiny. Well, fella, I just don't know. I saw his penis and his butt and everything. God bless that man. It sounds like we ADR'd it in too. It's the best part. It seems like it's fake because it's like all loud because he's standing right next to whoever's filming it. That son of a bitch is naked. That son of a bitch was me.
Might be the third straight podcast we've done where I almost blacked out.
Yeah, well, that was just we watched that video like 6,000 times. I think it was Ant had it because like who else would have? He filmed it. He was really quick on the draw with all that stuff. So anyway, that all said, I think that the funniest thing that'll happen, I actually am pretty sure, and it's not even wishful thinking, because I think I just don't even care anymore. Like, again, I'm becoming toxically spiritual, so I'm just like, everything's going to work out for me, and you know how I know that? It always has, and it shouldn't have, by the way. Like, I could write a book. Be like, John, you weren't into manifesting years ago, but when all this story started, I'm like, I'm just going to retcon it so that I was, and then that's why, because it also doesn't add up on paper, like, at all. I should be in jail, not a nice house that I own. Like, that doesn't make sense. But that's stated through thick and thin. That's just how it's always shaken out. I was in 2 bands that should never have even been a little bit famous and kind of were. Like, it's all obviously just the power of imagination. But the real thing is like, it's not wishful thinking when I'm pretty sure that Kamala's going to win this one. Like, once they pulled that shit where they're just like, it's not going to be Joe Biden anymore, and they're just at a loss for like what to do, I was like, oh, that's it. And it's like, most people still aren't, like, there's a lot of people that just love Trump and are like, he didn't really do anything in 4 years, but this time he will.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that sounds like the talk of people who believe this time it'll be 8 or more years than that. And I'm like, yeah, and I don't love that, but
where do you stand?
They're going to kill him, like Alex Jones said.
Yeah.
They're just going to kill him, so it doesn't even matter. Well, like I said, everything always works out for me.
That does kind of diffuse my question then. Because I was going to say, if he did win a second term, do you fall in the camp that he actually would try to become a dictator, or do you think it's just he'll just not do anything for 4 more years?
Well, last time he didn't do anything, so I kind of think it's that. I think he just said that, not saying that he's just joking. He's not. I think he just said that to make sure that all the like fucking weird like Christo-fascist evangelicals are just like, this is going to be our time to shine. So even when he decides to tell them to fuck off every once in a while, which he also does, which is a good way to get shot, by the way, a few times maybe, but it's like to get them to just go like, all right, calm down. He gets mouthy, but once he's through the door, that's it for women ever getting jobs ever again, or whatever their plan is. Yeah. Which is a real both sides. It's like, you try to help people, or you just keep big, huge chunks of the population from ever doing things like owning property. It's like, I'm not sure who I'm going to vote for yet. Yeah. But what I am going to tell you is I am a little undecided, only because I heard that Elon Musk is giving people like $1 million to vote for Trump or something like that.
Technically, you don't have to vote for Trump.
Well, I already mailed in my vote, and I live in a blue state, but I mean, I don't think Elon Musk watches this podcast, so I'm pretty positive, although I did once claim that he was trying to buy it. I will finally admit that I made that up. It's been like a year or 2.
I
don't think you were there for that one. I think it was Meredith when I was like, Elon Musk, so I was like, I'm not going to do it anymore. He's just buying the name, which he didn't realize. So he's going to have to come and do the Reverend John Wheeler podcast. However, you come with it. So Meredith, you have to do a podcast with Elon Musk, like in this same base. It's like, it's what he paid for. Like, I'm going to have to talk to him in the living room for like 5 minutes once a week. It's going to be really annoying. But it was like $30 million. So I was like, okay.
I don't really mind Elon one way or the other, but it has seemed like over the last couple of weeks, like whether it be podcast, like speaking like words to people is not among his strong points, it seems like.
Which is funny because all he does is buy companies with inherited. Now he's made his own money now, I know, but the first few with inherited apartheid emerald line money. He's never invented anything. Wouldn't talking words to people be about all he really should be good at? Or is it just proof that if you're just weird enough and have enough money when you're born from your parents, like, and you just kind of get lucky with the things that you buy, you can also have just legions of fucking stinky people that think Bitcoin is going to be a thing after the apocalypse or whatever the hell, just to lick your goddamn asshole constantly and just, leave dumb comments under this podcast and get auto-deleted by YouTube usually immediately. Yeah. So I never get any comments because they're mostly all those.
Well, speaking of him and speaking of Bitcoin, like, what do you think about him with the Department of Government Efficiency?
That is one of the only reasons why I'm sort of open to Trump winning this thing, because he will drag, phony Stark along with him to be his little fucking, Schmeagol bootleg, what he was born to be.
Yeah.
And he's going to put him, they're going to make up a dumb thing. They're going to name the Department of Government Efficiency, which is going to do nothing but embezzle money and like drill for oil in protected wildlife areas or whatever.
Yeah.
But they named it Doge. Yeah. And I have a giant collection because it costs virtually nothing. Just for funzos, it's like playing the penny slots in Vegas back when they would still come up with free drinks, although the waitress would be really cranky. Yeah. Because I'd still tip them, but I mean, like, I'm sitting there gambling with 50 cents for 3 hours, and I'm about 4 free Long Islands in. I mean, I'm winning. But in that same spirit, it's like I own, like, I just bought for like $100 a piece a while ago. It's like I own reasonable cryptocurrencies and a certain amount of Bitcoin. But like, just for the hell of it. But like, one of them is like Dogecoin, like those stupid meme coins, and that one is the one that like Elon Musk like likes to pump and dump. And it's like, it's like fractions of a cent. Like literally, like one of the ones I have, it's like if it goes up to like 23 cents, I'll have $19 million. Or something like that. It's like because it's like 0.0000. But it's like if he names a fucking government institution in the goddamn like let's blow money like idiots, another Trump administration or whatever. Like it's funny. They always call them spendocrats, but like nobody just has like an orgasm of borrowed money spraying all over everything more than when a normal Republican is in office. Let alone Trump, who's just the biggest fucking fake. Like so, yeah. Like, there'll be a temporary spike where everyone goes, this is going to be the next big thing, and buys a shitload of it. Yeah. I'll make, like, even if it doesn't even, it's like, I'll make, like, $2 million because it's still 0.0001 cents instead of 15 zeros or whatever. And for, like, 3 days, and I'll know that that's about to go away. Yeah. And I'll just sell it, and there'll be some news article that comes out because, again, if more people own more of it, it would be worth more than that or whatever. Yeah. So then wouldn't that be really disruptive? John, are you trying to manifest this happening? Aren't you supposed to not cause catastrophic things in the wake of you? It's like, I don't want to work for money. It's like, I'm putting the universe to task pretty hard here. It's like, I don't want to invent something. I don't want to like start a business, even one that's a really good idea. No, I'm going to just have lots of money for fucking no reason, and that could be I find a lottery ticket outside that someone else bought. I'm not spending $1 or whatever. One of these fucking shitball fucking crypto coins, just like something stupid happens, like Elon Musk says something on Twitter, it goes up like 1,800% for no reason. And it's happened before. Yeah. It's nowhere close to impossible, and it's not like the last time it happened was any less than 4 years ago. It's like it's a thing. So it's like, there'll be like 2,000 dickheads became multimillionaires that bought Maseratis, and it's fucking bullshit, and everyone that thought it would go up even higher lost all their money because it's worth even less than 15 zeros, 0.1 cent or whatever now. And it's like, I guess like, fuck that, some people just get lucky, and one of those assholes will be me. And so that, and again, I'm just going to reinvest that shrewdly. I'm not going to buy a Maserati. I might buy an Aston Martin after 10 years in the market. I mean, I got to write something off, and I'm going to need that to go to work still because I'm not leaving. Like, I'm still going to hang out with you half drunk and smoking weed every day, just making pictures and videos for Wally. Yeah. What else am I going to do during the day? I might cut down to part-time, but it'd take more than that to get rid of me.
Put a giant Reverend John Wheeler sign on a big building and make people think you own it.
I would love to blow all of my magical... You made $19 million because some fucking weirdo that retards worship made a phony government institution because an even bigger retard that even bigger retards worship became president again. Like... it's like I squander it all on a thing with my name on it, much like the aforementioned middle of the possible retard Venn diagram who's the current who will be president or whatever. It's like, no, I will. I mean, I'll get like a vanity plate, but that's it. I don't need to. I'm not going to bankrupt a casino for my ego. Like, my ego's fine. The things that you and I, even on a musical level, that I've already accomplished are enough to. Like, you once said that, like, we've met, like, real people, like the guys in Slipknot and everything like that. The biggest egos you've ever met are literally, like, other local glassblowers. Not everyone, but some. And it's like, being that that's a silly reason to have an ego, and we have every right with all the hobnobbing with actual name brand things, or charting on stuff, or having shirts at Hot Topics in states I don't live in, or whatever. It's like, my ego is fine. Like, nothing like that ever even has to happen again, and I'm pretty solid. Like, the stories I had at my 20-year high school reunion, I could have joined a cover band that played 3 shows, and everyone would have been blown away by the excitement of my life because I didn't have a kid 5 seconds after I graduated and then had to go work at my dad's gas station or whatever. Like, yeah, it's just like, I've been to a different state and played a keyboard there, and everyone's like, wow! Someone I didn't marry sucked my dick once. Like, are you sure? Like, yeah, that must have been a dream. You must have just seen that on the internet and thought it was you. I'm like, by gum, I'll tell you, it's happened more than once.
Man, I was just thinking I have played guitar in a lot of places other than Minnesota, and it was a good time, but there's a whole lot of awful out there too, though.
Well, yeah, but that's part of the, it's part of the experience. Like, are you ever going to have a cop wearing sandals yell at you for jumping in a pool naked and then not arrest you if it were not for playing a guitar in an awful, in Stumpy's Dump in Pascagoula, Missouri, or Mississippi?
Yeah, I should clarify, the awful is like what made it, that's what makes it worth it.
Yeah.
It's like digging a hole and seeing what kind of shit you might find in the ground today.
Yeah, like 400 million gallons of yellow diarrhea blowing out of a sewer pipe in China.
We gotta talk about that.
Well, the fun part is that's where our boss no, he's not current. He's in Spain right now because he's taking a little trip with Heidi, and then she's going home, and then so unfortunately there's no possible way, as recent as this was, that somehow or another that was the city Wally landed in. And he's like, because what I wanted was him to like kind of just be like do and just like look out the window of the airplane and just, and he's like, oh, what's that? Oh, well, and then later he finds out it was shit. And then comes back just aglow, just telling us all about it. And we're like, oh, yeah, we got videos of it. And he's like, I got one from the airplane. Yeah, that'd be great. But yeah, he unfortunately wasn't there. But anyway, what we're talking about is, and in case, you don't have the wherewithal to Google giant eruption of yellow diarrhea in China, which we should probably bring it up right away. I don't know how many times it's happened.
Yeah. For anybody who wants to just Google Chinese poop explosion, it's the first thing that comes up.
I mean, there's probably a couple of bands named that, but beyond, get past their Bandcamp.com accounts, and but yeah, let's have a little blow by blow here. This thing's been a little fussy. Hopefully, it works because this is absolutely worth it. Oh, look at that! It's like not media source 6. Oh no, wait, it's 5. Oh, there we are. Okay, perfect. Hold on a second now. Hang on. Wait. Okay. Oh, it's not letting me pause. This thing's being weird. It doesn't matter. See all that? That's poop. Like, that's what's coming out of there. And like a pressure in some sewer main. Like, I don't even know how that happens. Oh, but here we go. Someone's just going to work. He's like, I gotta run this semi. Like, oh no. Well, this is China. Things blow up every once in a while. That's fine. I'll just merge over to the far. Oh God! And then the video cuts out because hopefully that poor man is alive.
Literally, the windshield wipers were doing nothing.
Oh, they were doing something, but
that was it. They were just smearing.
They were certainly making it harder to see. And man, like, God, some of the air intake is up by the, that's all just, if he had like the, you push the button on your car and it goes from the recycled thing to the from outside thing. Like, I think that would be my first, before I hit the brakes or the windshield wipers, I'd be like, oh, and just switch to the recycled air. It's just like, don't suck this into the car. That will never come out of there. That has to be like the fucking like high density hog farms that go for like dozens and dozens of miles we've driven by, and I've almost thrown up. And the bus itself always just smelled like a bowling shoe.
Yeah,
and it overpowered that and was just stifling. There is no way that if you're actually in that cloud of just like raw yellow shit. It has to be like 1,000 times worse than the worst thing you've ever smelled, as far as how overpowering it is. Like, putting your shirt over your nose is not going to cut it. Like, that's...
It might cut a hole in your shirt.
Oh, it's just going to melt off like...
Yeah.
Oh, like in The Simpsons when they use real acid in the McBain radioactive movie. His clothes just melt off and... The goggles, they do nothing. Like, that would be you. Like, your goggles, everything. Like you could have like a clothespin on your nose and you would be able to smell it through your fingers. Like you would absorb it like a gecko or something. I just don't even that like because there's no combustion from what I could see. You know what I mean? If it was like, okay, like methane can blow up.
Yeah.
But where does it, there's no oxygen, you know what I mean? If there was like a flame, it's like, oh, it was open and then like a giant fireball, you know, and then everybody's like, oh, that's burning shit gas. And then there's shit like blurbling all over. It's like up to everybody's knees that are working, you know, it sucks. But like.
Why can't cool shit like that happen here?
It will.
It will, yeah.
I mean, it like.
Our infrastructure's crumbling, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, I think different cool stuff will happen here. Because China's thing isn't so much that their infrastructure's crumbling, because a lot of it's new, but it's more like hastily thrown together in like a propped up by phony government money sort of blind panic.
That's exactly it, because I think that that particular line that blew in reading the article about it was fairly new.
Oh yeah.
So it wasn't like just some old thing. I think to your point, it was probably just hastily put together, and next thing you know, you've got like 10 million people's worth of poop just flying through.
Well, yeah, that's why like it's like an awesome, like Hong Kong's like an amazing city, and the reason it's amazing is because they got like sewers fucking in 2001. Like, you know, it's like, so they're all these brand new, like, oh, we have to have, like, we can't just have. Again, Wally, our boss, he's been to China a lot for business and whatever, and he's just like, it's so beautiful. It's like the natural beauty there is unbelievably amazing, and like the new cities like Hong Kong and wherever else is like, you know, super modern or whatever, just absolutely like gleaming, like it's like super incredible. Like I'd love to see it, but the thing is my favorite part of China is not that part. Like as much as it'll be like this beautiful gleaming, you know, like in The Dark Knight or whatever, when he follows that dude to, you know, he flies to Guangzhou or wherever he goes. Maybe it's Hong Kong, you know, because like the cops are like, oh, you know, we can't do anything, and then Morgan Freeman's like, the Batman does not have any jurisdiction, and then he just, you know, so he'll go to fucking Hong Kong and fuck you up. That's, you know, he's Batman, but they show it and it's like super futuristic and it's exactly what it's like it's really cool, and it's like that, and then sometimes like a giant old faithful geyser of human shit will just explode all over like an 8-lane highway, but that doesn't happen every day there, you know. It's like, but my favorite part of China are the undeveloped parts, because it's just like a lot of people are aware of this, but I want to go to like not the, and I'm sure those parts are like naturally beautiful, but go to the non-futuristic parts of China where people have no sense of like personal space, or you can't smoke in here or whatever. It's just like, I want like an 80-year-old man to just shove me out of the way at a buffet line because he wants at like whatever like horrible food is just in there or whatever. It's like I want that, you know, where people, they just pull down their pants and shit on the sidewalk and stuff. And I'm not being fucked up. No one in Hong Kong does that. Literally, people in like those areas like Hong Kong and stuff are ultra racist against like mainland China people. Like, this is just like me going like, this is what happens. And it's like, and I don't think it's even bad. I think it's great. Like I said, that's the part I want to visit. Like, I want to go somewhere where there's absolutely just no social rules whatsoever. Like, even Wally said that like somebody looked at him weird because he like abstained from shoving someone out of the way so he could also get in the elevator. It was like the guy behind him, because like it's a bit like Wally's pretty tall here. He's like 11 feet tall in China. Yeah. So it's like the guy was just like, you're so big, why didn't you just push everyone? Like, why didn't you shove these 70-year-old people down and step over them so you can get in the elevator? Because then I could have followed you and gotten in there. What, are you crazy? And he's just like, you know, I doubt anyone was able to understand it, but you know, it was implied the way he was kind of gesturing and looking at him, and he was just kind of like, all he could do is gesture like, I'm just gonna get the next one. Like,
yeah, there's no reason to not assault somebody just so that you don't have to wait an extra like 4 seconds.
And that's
no way.
That's so awesome. It's like, I don't want to live there, but I want to go visit that, because you know what? Again, as I've become like a toxically positive spiritualist nutcase in my midlife crisis, I love the feeling of gratitude. And going to mainland China and having someone just flick a cigarette butt in my face while I'm like waiting to get food somewhere. It's like I come back here and someone's like whiny kid in the restaurant just doesn't seem as bad. And now I'm just a lot more like, I'm like grateful for what I have, which is a wonderful state to be in. It really draws a lot of positivity into your life.
Yeah. I wonder, is there anywhere in America you can still smoke inside?
No.
Any states? It's all just
No, we've learned from touring. We watched it disappear.
Yeah.
It was like 2006.
Wisconsin held on for a long time.
I played the last show in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, in this bar, the House of Rock. The show they literally had to kiss smoking goodnight. It was like the last day you could smoke there. SMB played there with Black Flood Diesel. Yeah. The place maybe holds like 190 people. It's just this bar. It has a nice stage, but there was like easily over 200 people in there. Yeah. And everyone was just chain smoking. Like, I left and I like coughed up an entire cigar, and I hadn't smoked anything. Like, it was the most miserable experience of my life. But I couldn't, again, like visiting somewhere with no human rights laws just for a goof. Yeah. Like, it's a fond memory that I have now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I could barely like the new music I'm doing a bit of a Tom Waits impression. I couldn't help it at that show. Everything was just like, you know. And it was like, you know, Greg, at least, like, I think he smoked cigarettes at the time, so he had an okay time with it. I think he still was, as a singer, absolutely miserable. But, like, I was like, this sucks. I can't even fucking see. Not because it's not because it's obstructive. I can't open my eyes. They sting. It's like opening your eyes in a pool made of pure chlorine. Like, it's just, it was horrid. But yeah, that was it. I remember there was we had a tour with Psycho Stick. We were playing in, like, somewhere in North Carolina. I think you could smoke there. But that was still, like, before that, I think. Like, I remember it's like... And that's... You know, everybody talks about, like, Gen Z and Gen Alpha will never remember fucking 8-track tapes. And it's like, I never knew anyone that had that in a car. I'm 44 fucking years old. Like, but... You know what they really will never understand is how much cigarette smoke was at things you would go to. Like, we live in a time where you can just rip your oil pen in First Ave and no one's going to know. But... There was like a time in between, you know, when there was no smoking allowed, but all you could do was smoke flower, so you really just couldn't do it, like you get caught. Yeah. But before that, everyone was just sitting there smoking fucking cigarettes. Like, that place holds like 1,500 people just watching Guar. And it's like you could just sit there and like rip fucking your little like metal, you know, stovepipe thing of weed you kind of snuck in because you stuck it behind your wallet or in your crotch, you know, when you got felt up to like sneak in there or in your boot or something, and you could just smoke it because the cigarette smoke was just so overpowering. It smelled like Dodd Draper's ass. Like, it was so much that you just like, you couldn't even tell if people were smoking weed. You'd catch it for like a second.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, I don't know where this is coming from. I can barely see anything in here. But yeah, to me, that's the weirdest thing no one will remember, because that's such a large experience. It's not like, you had to roll your window up. It's like, yeah, there's windows in my house that I got to push. You know, there's not robots doing that yet. I get it.
Yeah.
But like, you'll never know what it's like to be in a place that big with that many people smoking. It's impossible. Like, you're just in a room with no circulation while like a guy in a G-string is like playing a guitar solo and he's smoking and there's fake blood being shot all over everybody, and you just can't even fucking see the people in front of you because of how many cigarettes are going, and you feel like you're gonna die. Like, you're aging. Like you flew a spaceship too close to a black hole. It's like 5 years for every 1 minute that you're in there. It's like, you know, there's like a gravity distortion. You just like look like somebody's uncle when you leave and you're 14. Like, it, you know. But yeah, that's the, like, I normally don't take this generational stance because I hate it. You know what I mean? Where everyone's like, kids these days, it's like, and if you were born now, you'd be one of them.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't be able to handle, riding your bike off a cliff or whatever the hell you think is so important. It's like, and if they were born back when you were born, I think the idea is if kids now were born back then, they'd be like the wienery kid we'd pick on. It's like, they'd probably be beating you up. Like, I don't, you know, it's like kids, they're always like 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
They're full of beef hormones and all this weird shit and microplastics. They're like immortal and, you know, they can't read, but they're, they're like, every like 15-year-olds are like looking down on me, and I'm like 6 feet tall. Like, it's like, so if they were born back then, they'd like go to Vietnam on purpose because it's like a, you know, they're just like dabbing and shooting people and just, it's just like Call of Duty. Like, you know, when you just sat there trying to get out of it or whatever, like, yeah, I don't know. But that's the hill I'll die on. Is like, one thing no one will... You can't understand what that exact... Like, even if you sit in a closet chain smoking cigarettes by yourself, it will not completely, like, reenact how bizarre and unhealthy and fucked up and weird that was. Just like every concert, it was just like death.
Felt like Perkins hung on for a long time, too.
They knew their audience. They're like, as soon as no one could smoke in here, why the fuck would you eat these plastic chicken fingers? It's like, no, it's just because you could have a cigarette with them. It's like Perkins exclusively like catered to people whose taste buds didn't work because of how much they smoked. There's no other way to explain the menu. Like, Waffle House is more flavorful.
Yeah.
Perkins is like a bland Waffle House with no fist fights. Why would you go there?
As you say that, you should watch one of the new John Olivers did do a thing about how like weirdly Waffle House is like a metric for like the political pulse of where the election is going, of like what people are saying in Waffle Houses. Whatever, fine. Set that aside for a second.
Okay.
He shows a training video of how you like plate everything. This is a training video of like, you know, you put the mayo packet like this and it means you want the eggs like this, and if you put the jelly like this, it means you want
what?
So it's all it's super complicated. Somebody posted the video, and the first comment that he brought up was somebody said, "I've been a police officer for 20 years, and I would rather respond to an active shooter call than try to understand whatever the fuck that was." But yeah, Waffle House.
You know what the most shocking part of that whole thing is that Waffle House has training videos. Like, don't they just hand you a spatula and a gun and just be like, here you go, like, fucking figure it out.
You'd think so. Instead, you get this training video that's like you're gonna work for fucking like Lockheed Martin and have to figure out how to fucking.
Which is amazing because I made this joke on stage and people aren't well traveled, like, because we don't even have Waffle Houses here. Or I did make a joke about how people were, what was it? It actually went pretty well. It was like, everyone in Florida is mad that there's drag queens reading to little kids in libraries, and I'm like, I don't know about you, but I've never seen a library. Like, who the fuck is reading in Florida? I was just gonna say,
who reads in Florida?
It's like the last thing they read was a Waffle House menu and like it has pictures. But
shouldn't we actually be stoked to be like, wow, somebody's reading to kids in Florida?
Yeah, well, they don't want them learning.
Meth addicted parents certainly aren't.
The second if you live in Florida, the day after you learn to read, you move somewhere else. Like that's. It's like Freeway Ricky Ross, like, you know, he learned to read in prison, and then he was like, wait a minute, a bunch of these charges are all... He got out of jail. That's what Florida is. You just become literate, and then you move literally anywhere else. But I also made a joke, and this is unfortunate, because like this one didn't really fly as well, but it was like... The same three people work. I was like, Waffle House is proof that we're in the Matrix, basically. Because it's like, we're not going to make more of these. Just make one and just put it everywhere. No one's going to know. Everyone's in there at 3 a.m. And there's 3 people that work at Waffle House. There is a 300-pound balding white lady with a gap in her teeth who's a waitress. There is the exact same lady, same baldness pattern and gap, who's just black, who's also a waitress, but she calls you sugar. And then there's a guy that somehow, he's a white guy that was in World War I, even though it's 2024 right now, who's just smoking while he's cooking eggs back there and has like blood on his apron. And that's it. Those are who works there. And then the cops would come every time there's like a giant fight or whatever. Yeah. And everyone was like, it didn't work. And I was inspired by... I watched the roast of... Oh, who was it the roast of? I think it was Flava Flav. Yeah, the roast of Flava Flav. And Lisa Lampanelli, all of the girls from Flavor of Love were in the front row, and Lisa Lampanelli just went up there and just shit all over them the whole time, and it was like the funniest thing. She goes, they look like the 3 a.m. staff from a Jacksonville, Florida Waffle House, and people laughed, and Ice-T did what you did. Like but he almost threw up, because nobody knew how true that was more than Ice-T.
Oh, yeah.
Like, no, as soon as he like spit his drink out, like, it's like, and they like cut to them, and they were just like, fuck you. And they looked exactly like the 3 a.m. fucking staff at a Jacksonville, Florida Waffle House in that moment.
Waffle House does kind of seem like if a cigarette was a restaurant.
I love Waffle House so much, though,
like, if you could just make a giant cigarette big enough to put a restaurant in it, that's Waffle House.
It has all, I think it was Jim Gaffigan that said it has all the ambience of a gas station bathroom. What were his bits about Waffle House? He was like, here's something you never hear in a Waffle House. Great job cleaning up, everybody. Also, I was in one in Houston, Texas once with like an ex-girlfriend. And like, that is where I, including watching TV shows about the jungle, saw the biggest cockroach I've ever seen in my life.
Oh.
Anywhere, just run across. I thought it was a rat. It was a bug. That was like, I was just like, Dude, look at that. It's like one of those things from the Temple of Doom when she turns her hand over. And I was like, oh my God. Like, there is a guy, like, if you, like, pull on the sink in the bathroom, there's a guy pulling someone's heart out in a giant cave down there. Like, which would, if I had really saw that, like, I would not have been surprised.
Yeah.
Like, I would have just been like, I followed like a 3.5 pound bug into the bathroom and the wall flips around and there's just like, and just be like, okay, just pull the sink and go back and then just go back and eat my grilled cheese sandwich.
Yeah.
All right. Mental note, pee in the parking lot with everyone else. Don't go in the bathroom anymore.
It's literally a fucking bug that asks you for a cigarette.
Oh yeah, it's like a bug that like, you know,
you got a light.
That bug is on fentanyl, and he's just fine.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I do. I love Waffle House. So I wish we had them here. They can't exist here. It's just, there's probably like, I mean, generally they're not in the northern part of the, whatever.
They don't vibes 100% with Minnesota nice.
No,
You know
and
what I
like
mean?
it's not a Waffle House if it's not in a place that's hot and muggy at 2 a.m. still,
Yeah.
like Houston.
Yeah.
Or Florida or Louisiana or just anywhere like that where it's just like the sun has been down for hours and it is still just disgustingly hot and wet outside up until that last hour before the sun comes up where it's cold and wet and then it's hot and wet again, which is the hour that you're at Waffle House. You cannot go there anywhere that has like a winter or that like has free school lunches for kids. Like you just can't put a Waffle House in that environment.
No.
It just isn't done. They'd probably make a ton of money, but there's rules. Okay? Like, even if we are in a simulation, which Waffle House, again, heartily proves, part of, like, the Cyberdyne systems that designed that or whatever, it's like, you cannot put this in a place that has, like an 80% employment rate. Like, that's not where these belong. They belong in everywhere that lost the Civil War, and that's the only way it's going to make sense.
How many dump trucks do you think you could fill with all of the cigarette ashes from Waffle House that have landed in somebody's food by the cook?
Like, since they've been open, I don't think there's that many dump trucks in operation currently anywhere on the planet Earth. Like, that's
just all the dump trucks.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because I feel like there in Denny's, it just always seems like we were talking about, not being able to smoke inside anymore. That seems like a place where even after those laws were passed, the cook was still back there smoking cigarettes for at least 7 more years.
Well, that's why they can only be in the South, because, they passed those laws, and it's not even like Waffle House is just doing it, because they're ignoring it. It's like there's a little asterisk that just says, there's like 15 asterisks in every law they pass in the South that conforms with the general, it's like, except for Waffle House, it says. Like, the FDA, that... Like, places that get, like, a D- from the health inspector have to close except for Waffle House. Like, you can't smoke anywhere inside except for Waffle House. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, like, a bunch of, like...
That's terrifying, too, because I have a friend that lives in L.A., and they have those food rating things on the outsides of their restaurants, and...
That's what they call it. That's what they call it, Waffle House. They were called something else, and they just got like the first place to ever get a W. They just added Awful House to it. And they're like, there we go. See?
Well, he was saying that like
it's the only thing below an F
in their actual like local ordinances in Los Angeles County. I could be wrong about this, but he basically said that like you don't want to eat anywhere that doesn't have an A because the list of things you have to do to even get a B are like horrifying. Like he's like, if I could show you the list of just what it takes to get a B, you'd be like, I am never stepping foot on the block that restaurant exists on.
Well, here's the thing, man. Restaurants, and I think you know as well as I do, and hopefully most people, although they don't, are disgusting. Like, think about the most tired, angry, drug-addicted people you can possibly imagine, and just like, that is who is in charge of making sure nothing gross happens to your food. And then add on top of that the amazing power of the free market, which is like, how can we have the most tired, angry, dirty, drug-addicted people you could possibly imagine take the cheapest ingredients that we could find, shipped here from God knows where, and then sitting there for like 6 months, like under a freezer full of like brown chicken melting into the, everything that would make Gordon Ramsay have a brain aneurysm. Like, how, and then that's like, yeah, that's a B, I'm sure. The B stands for bugs. Like, like that's why I do have a bit of an affinity for like I'll eat anything, right? Like I'm like, you know, my wife does things like, you know, read expiration dates, and then personally I don't really give a shit how long something's been under the couch. I'll still eat it, and you know, but as far as like if I'm paying good money, that's where I sort of become a bit of an elitist. Sometimes that's the only, when I talk about like, investing and da-da-da, and it's like, I have more money than I should, and I hope to have even more for even less of a good reason in the future, blah, 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 blah. All I really care about, I have a cool car. I love my house. Everything's fine. Yeah. I just want to be able to eat at like basically like country clubs. Like somewhere where there's like, if there's a single child there, he's in a suit and tie. And he's on the verge of tears from how much his mom just yelled at him outside to fucking straighten up or he's losing his inheritance. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? And then he's going to have to become like me and just use magic to get money or whatever. And he doesn't know how to do that. He's a trust fund kid. Yeah. So, like, you know, that's... Yeah, you go to the nice sushi places, you know? Yeah, you go to the A plus places. It costs a little bit of money, but you don't do it every day. You know, you make your own food at home and then you...
But even Waffle House, is it too much to ask if I'm paying money that the, you know... coked out cooks, you know, smoking cigarettes that has a staph infection just doesn't give me a foodborne illness?
Well, here's the thing about Waffle House. They invented the open concept kitchen. No one gives them any credit for this.
That's
like,
true, yeah.
You know who the actual, like, arbiter, the actual, like...
I haven't been in one for a while.
No, the cook's right there. That's how I know that he was in World War I and is chain smoking the entire time.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that would bother me more because I think if he wasn't smoking a cigarette, I would find it unsettling.
I think that it really adds to the mystique, and I think the cigarette smoke is probably doing more to actually disinfect everything than it is to make it, it's at least something.
Yeah.
And, like, things can't live in that environment. And
he's at least got to, like, be chewing toothpicks or doing something that makes me think he's a little unstable.
Yeah, you know I mean? And chewing toothpicks would be a big sign of instability, being that one normally would need teeth for such an activity. But they're already gone, so none of them are going to end up in your food. Like, that's,
He's got just heartening. There's just this wad of toothpicks just rolling around.
Like, just gumming his gum picks. Well, that's fine. He's doing it to help himself quit smoking at 111 years old. That's, but there's a whole separate institution, like, because, he's right there, the waitresses are there, like, nobody disappears into the back. Like, everything's being done right. You're sitting at the counter, it's great. It's part of what I love about it. There's like fistfights going on behind you, health code violations in front of you, like it's business in front, party in back, like it's great. But the regulatory committee that actually watches over Waffle House is you. Like, it's like they're right there. So it's just it's the buyer beware. It's the laissez-faire school of the economy. It's like if you see a Band-Aid fall in your food, like hey, like I want cigarette butter better. Band-Aid's no good. That's not gonna fly. Make me a new one.
Yeah.
I paid $3 for this. I'm so drunk I can't see, but I saw that Band-Aid fall in there. You're not going to put one over on me, Waffle House.
This kid's meal doesn't have a kid's Band-Aid with unicorns on it?
Mm-mm. Sir, a new Band-Aid would be okay. That's something I could use.
Yeah.
But, when like one that's just turned into a tiny little rolled up condom onion ring off your finger ends up in there. It's like 90% brown blood. Like... I'm sorry, but you're just going to have to make that again. Use your other hand. I don't know. Like, but that's... I guess that's proof that maybe I'm a little bit wrong. When the stupidest people we know talk about how there should be no regulations on anything, like, it's like, well, Waffle House, everything should be an open kitchen like that.
Yeah.
You're there. You're there drunk, monitoring other people on drugs who are also drunk as they work.
It's weird. This whole conversation is making me think that maybe Trump eating all that McDonald's isn't nearly as bad.
See, there's a certain charm to a Waffle House that's just not in a McDonald's. Like if Trump, if he was like, again, like he's a New York criminal, but if he's a Florida guy, and if his thing was Waffle House, I'd at least kind of be like, that's fun. That's fun. But McDonald's is just like, it's so corporate.
I'd vote for him today if he walked into a Waffle House and lit up a cigarette.
I would have to.
You know what I mean? Just plop down and started talking.
Elon Musk wouldn't have to give me $1 million at that point. I'd be like, well, here's the... Okay, the entire thing with that guy is that, like, people think he's what you just said, but he clearly, to anyone who can think, isn't.
No, of course not. No.
If he was actually like a scummy, but like mob boss guy with like that swagger, not like kind of like a confused, incontinent sort of mean-spirited weirdo that just says anything so that people will like him, but he's just the best guy at doing that, like at saying things, which is like a toxic personality trait, but it's just, once you're that good at it, it means that like millions of people will like you, like, but it's not good. It's not for a reason. Like, if he was honestly just kind of this guy that just saw, he's like, we're doing like a press junket, you know, like they show like JD Vance doesn't know how to order a donut, but then at the same time it's like, which now it makes it so that Tim Waltz being good at ordering donuts is an electable fucking quality, which is insane. Like, yeah, I like that he's like a folksy I like him as a governor. I do like him and everything, but it's like, if you're voting based on like, now that man knows how to order a donut, that guy that fucks couches doesn't know how to. I'm like, okay, why are we basing that off that?
I'm not gonna base any of that off who I vote for, but like, what was with JD Vance with the like, he's looking at the donut and he said like, why don't you give me like a couple, like, I don't know, just like whatever makes sense. And it's like, what does that mean? Like, what? No. How does whatever make sense? Like, you just tell me what fucking donuts you want in the box, and I'll put them in there.
Well, and you know, he's just like a fucking like Damien 3 from the, you know, being propped up by Peter Steele, or not Peter Steele. We got rest. Yeah, Peter Thiel. You know what? It's a little embarrassing that Peter Thiel's name even sounds like Peter Steele, who's a literal god among men.
I was just gonna say that's like you couldn't go from like as cool to as uncool of a person.
Yeah, it's like if you had like a knob that just said all humans, like one would be here and the other one would be like, you know, it's like, so like the weird billionaire Republican donor guy's the guy at the good end. It's like, no, I'm afraid it's a 7 foot tall, muscly guy with long black hair that makes like amazing goth music and has an 8 foot dick. Like, he's not at the low end of the dial, you simps. But, like the thing is I'm like, I don't care how out of touch you are. I hope to be so wealthily out of touch someday that I have no idea. Again, it's like at some point I will only eat in country clubs that disallow children. Like that I would love that. But like, I would know enough to be like, if you're going to be a weirdo, let's just not do this. You know what I mean? It's like, do you have to film yourself in a donut store?
Yep. What
is the point of that? Like, you're just goading a guy who like basically lives in a donut store into a fight you're gonna lose. Like, it makes no sense. Go to like a factory that makes those Cambridge or Boston Dynamic robots and talk about how cool it'll be watching them just mow down people in a Middle Eastern country that we're not in a war yet, and then just look at the camera and be like, I mean, oops, if we were, because you know we will be, or what, you know. It's like, I'm a bad widow boy. Anyway, isn't that cool? Because like the people you're pandering to would love that.
Yep.
And honestly, if Donald Trump just like walked into a Waffle House and just swore at everybody and lit up a cigarette, he'd be who you idiots think he is. And I might even be like, well, that's fun. And if he hadn't already been an incompetent do-nothing president for 4 years, which he has been, so this is fucking null and void, but like, I would give him a chance.
Yeah.
But it's like, he's not that guy, and he already didn't do anything other than put his kids in charge of all these, like, slush funds. Fucking, like, what the fuck, you know, like, he's just making himself richer. That's the only point, not you.
I feel like as we're having this conversation, I do think that, like, well, I guess it'd be, because cigarettes, he probably wouldn't live very long at this point if he started smoking cigarettes, but I do think it would make him existentially more believable on the stuff that he's clearly lying about.
If I found out he was smoking fake cigarettes like me just because it's funny, like I would treat it the exact same way. Yeah. Like, they don't need to be real.
Well,
I just want that guy that looks like he's working at NASA in 1961 just fucking smoking a while. It's like, sir, you can't do that. I was like, I was the president for a minute there. Yeah. And just like flick it, you know, onto the grill and be like, well, sir, we have to start all over. It's like, leave it in the food. I'll eat it.
Well, like
not a Nancy.
Did you see
like, okay.
Did you see the clip of him talking about Arnold Palmer, the golfer or whatever?
He said, I didn't see it. All I heard was people being like, so he talked about how that guy has like a big wang or something.
Yeah, so he basically, because he was in Pennsylvania
which
somewhere,
is likable enough,
wherever Arnold Palmer's from, but he did his coy, obnoxious way of like, you know, Arnold Palmer's a great guy, and you know, I shouldn't say it. I'm not going to say it.
I sucked his dick once.
Yeah.
Again! fuck our future. I just vote for the guy that did that.
But
which is who people think he is, but he's not. Like, because he didn't say that. It's not fun, you know. But please continue. I'm sorry.
But he literally just, you know, did the whole, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. Well, I'll just say, you know, that a lot of guys walked out of the locker room after Arnold Palmer and said, wow. And, you know, the ladies, they loved him. But to the point of what we're just talking about is, like, all of that is just obviously obnoxious pandering, like, whether or not it's true. Like, if Arnold Palmer has a big dick, good for him.
I mean, I guess it's funny that that's the one compliment he could think of. I mean, again, like, it moves the needle a little, but more like I would subscribe to his podcast, not I would want him in charge of the country. But by the way, I probably would. Like, if it's just like, he just has a podcast now, I'm like, yeah, I'll listen to that.
But wouldn't you find the bullshit that you know is not real slightly more tolerable if instead of doing that at a rally, he sits down fucking just with his hair all disheveled at a Waffle House and lights up a cigarette and he's like, did you see fucking Arnold Palmer's dick? It's fucking huge.
Yeah, if he drank, I would vote for him. Like everything he does, if he was just a completely like an Andre the Giant or like Dean Martin, just a famous. There's articles about how big of a drunk he is and how amazing it is that he's still alive. It would change everything because at the very least there'd be enough of a again that would make him who everyone who likes him think he actually is. You know what I mean? Like,
if you're gonna act like that, give people an actual legitimate excuse as to why.
It's like, yeah, he's just he's old school. Yeah. Like, he was around in the 60s. He's just a big booze bag, and he just does whatever. Be like, okay, like, so there's no sort of like, like he might act, like everyone looks at him as this wild card, but it's just like, you know, it's just the top bidder. Like, that's it, and it's just those are the worst people who have the most money. So it's like, that's bad. Like,
who was it? It might have been Joe Rogan or somebody. Somebody did stand up saying that it'd be funny if he did win a second term. If, like, you know, he wins his term and then, like, the day before inauguration, like, you know, he's getting ready and then, like, the day of inauguration he just shows up like a Russian dictator where he, like, shaves his head bald and grows a mustache and stuff and, like, gets all ripped or whatever.
It was Rogan who said if he was like bald with a beard or something, like, he'd be kind of intense or whatever. And it's actually somebody did that once where they photoshopped Kim Jong, who's the current ill? Kim Jong-il?
Kim Jong-un is the current one. Kim Jong-il is the...
Kim Jong-il is the one, and then
he's the elder one that's passed.
And Kim Il-sung is the immortal permanent president who's like just while in heaven having people work in his stead because that country's not wild. Yeah. But like, yeah, like they photoshopped Kim Jong-un so he wasn't fat. And he was like scarier. He was like obviously he's scary because he is, but like... Yeah. Like, he looks like Mu Deng, you know, like the hippo. It's like, which is adorable. Like, it's, you know, it's like, oh, look at him rolling around in his own filth. Like, he's not like, they literally photoshopped him skinny. Yeah. And he looked like a Bond villain. He was just like applauding someone he disagreed with and just giving him a side eye at the UN or something. It's like, that's intense. You know, instead of just being like instead of being the boner Pillsbury Doughboy, like, it's fun, but it's not intimidating. And
the elder one that's dead too, I think that Kim Jong-il had like legitimate like propaganda out there to like convince the populace that he didnk poop. Oh, he didn't have an anus.
The deeper you get into that, the wilder he's like. He like did like he's like one of the only people to score like less in a golf game than however many holes there are, and he did it like one-handed or something, and it's just like, yeah, who knows. He got a 2-in-1 once. The ball split in half, and he got a hole-in-one on the one he was shooting, and then the next one after that at the same time or something. Like,
it's kind of incredible. That's actually, in a weird way, that's kind of what Trump does, just in a little bit more. Like he colors in the line a little bit more.
Yeah, it's because as dumb as this country is, and it is.
Oh, it is.
But like, still, when you've been. So what they're trying to do in this country is the way that North Korea has been for like 70 years. So it's like, oh, there's no Department of Education. Well, there is. But it's like it makes everything happening in like the fucking 70s Soviet era Russia look like Minnesota's school district. You know, it's like, yeah. So it's like nobody knows any different when he's like, I don't have an anus. I come from the stars. And they're just like, yes, that's things that are... Here it's like people are still like, well, he's just joking around. But he's going to make sure we ain't never get no black president like Obama again. You watch. Like, and that's, I mean, I didn't say that out loud, but soon I'll be able to, and that's what I want. And then women can stop voting. It's like those people are like, like 50 years after those idiots get whatever they want, then we'll have a president with no anus who can who's golfed a 1, like according to it's like, what?
If he doesn't poop, then
and everyone believes it.
But if he doesn't poop, then what am I smearing all over my windshield?
That came from lesser people. That came from like somebody, when we were talking to our coworker.
From actual humans that have anuses.
Yeah, not luminous beings like our obese fucking lord. That's the other thing. Like, Jesus had abs. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that like looks are everything, but if he comes back, is he just gonna be like a fat sack of shit? Like, is that really? Like, the dictators who are like, oh yeah, like, it's like, do a sit-up and tell me you're Jesus, and I might listen to you. You know what I mean? Women should look at, it's like, some female comic had the great joke of, they see Jesus up on the cross, he's just got, like, he's got rocking like an 8-pack with like dick root showing and stuff, and Jesus is like, he can't move his hands, and I could just pull that little loincloth down. And it's like, that's how they should feel about you if you're claiming that you were sent by God to run this country into the ground by proposing all sorts of weird tariffs that don't make any sense. And like, all that's, it's like, okay, I get it if you're like un-Christ-like in your beliefs and behaviors and activities, but I mean, if you're fucking shredded beef, like, I might be like, that's a man. That's a man who has all the power in the universe to choose what he looks like.
Yeah.
But I guess it would be sort of like one of those weird evangelical things. Like, wow, he's gonna come in a different form. And it's just like a toupee and somebody that pees on people. Like, I don't know. Was there anything else on that list that we haven't touched? Because I think we'll probably have to wrap up here soon. I don't mind going a little long because it's like we haven't done this in forever, and I'm going to be in Portugal when the election happens, and you know what the election surprise might be? Whether or not John Wheeler comes back to America. Alexis's parents live there. They have a spare bedroom. I can figure it out. You know what I mean? I might just go like, someone mail our snakes to us. They'll be fine. Sell the house at it's not paid off, but it's still worth $90,000 more than it was when we bought it in 2020. It's like, I'll just hang on to that. That goes a long way in Portugal. Like, I'll find a job, and I just don't care. I'll just leave. That's really all I need. I guess like someone can have all the guns because I can't really have those there. But like, if you want them or anything. But it just. No one who watches this gets those, by the way. Yeah. It doesn't matter who you are. Do not email me. Or do email me. Actually convince me. You know what? I'm a person that's willing to just listen to the other side. I think people think I'm very stalwart in my opinions. But mostly it's just that I'm so much smarter than everybody else, and it's like hard. It's like listening to a 5-year-old tell you there was a dinosaur in the backyard yesterday. Yes, I want to believe that's true. Yeah. I know it's not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, if you're like, well, maybe there was. I'm like, that's so sweet, but there was not a Tyrannosaurus. Like, it'd be on the news.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or on the ring cam. I'd be able to look. I want there to be a dinosaur in the neighborhood so badly, and I get it. I get it, but I can't do it with you guys. It's like, Elon Musk is actually a genius. Like,
Yeah.
If he was born with the amount of money I was born with, he probably wouldn't be alive right now. Maybe.
Maybe, yeah. I just hope...
I'd be doing better than him, I think. Like, he'd be roadieing for Blue Felix. That's probably what would happen. He was born in Prior Lake anyway, and that,
I just hope, regardless of who wins in a couple weeks, that come January they turn the White House into Section 8 housing and let it get taken over by Venezuelan gangs.
That would be awesome.
God, that would be just the best.
The smartest move would just be to let Spirit Halloween have it, I think.
Just turn it into a Spirit Halloween that's run by Venezuelan gangs.
You know what? Everybody's happy that way. Yeah. It makes a little money here and again, and it I do want to touch on the Venezuelan gig thing though, because we were talking about it earlier at work, and like I do love that someone had pointed out like that, it's like, well, that's an overblown story, and it's like, well, it happened. Like a gang of Venezuelans.
Yeah, she tried to say
took over an apartment building.
It was anecdotal because it had only happened at a few apartment complexes. So it's,
yeah, and there's two ways to look at that. All right, the knee-jerk reaction is to go like, well, you're just downplaying this. Like, no one was suggesting that they took over like the city council and they like took the building from the landlord by force or whatever, and like they own it. Like, it's like, well, they didn't take it over. They simply sieged it with automatic weapons and like killed a bunch of people. That's all, like, or whatever. And that, like, I get that, but I mean, like, I think the thing that some people, and by the way, I might be a little bit of like a not racial obviously, but just societally in general, I might be a little bit of like a bored elitist in a certain way. Again, where it's like I would love to just be Gomez Adams and just be old money and just like, today I'm going to take a ride in my Zeppelin. It's like, do you earn that money? Like, do you want to sword fight? Like, that's who that. To pretend that isn't awesome, to make money without having to work is great. But like, so I get it, but I think it's elitism in general. People don't understand that if you live in an apartment complex at all, like if that's your life, like if you live in one that has just like 4 units and they're kind of nice and vintagey or something, it's like, or 8, that's one thing. If you live in one of those, if you live in an apartment complex with a fucking elevator, like it being besieged by Venezuelan gangs is like not the worst thing that's happened there. Even no. It's like the amount of like women getting punched in the face and then like that you can hear through the wall, and then 2 hours later, women loudly fucking that guy that punched them through the wall is just going to be like a regular occurrence. The smell of weed is only occasionally overpowered by the smell of crack once you finally learn what that smells like, which is like throwing like VHS tapes in a fire. You're just like, oh, that's what that is. I thought they were just heating their apartment with, whatever they stole from that old Blockbuster video that was closing. Turns out it's just crack.
Yeah.
Which is better? I don't know. But it's like, so it's just like, okay, like a Venezuelan gang, like, it was probably somebody they knew. You know what I mean? It's like if you're like, the 80-year-old lady that lives there, or the 20-year-old lady with 80 kids that lives there, or like whoever lives in an apartment complex. It's just like, there's probably a Venezuelan guy who like rubbed some other Venezuelan guys the wrong way and thought that maybe because like, he moved to America and started a new life, that they would never use like a lax border policy and fucking absolutely dismal gun laws, which hilariously doesn't come up in that narrative at all. It's like they just let anybody over the borders, and then you hand them fucking AR-15s for like $200 and no background check. I'm like, well, that's, if they weren't here, that wouldn't happen. And it's like, but they do show up, here and again. And it's like, it's harder to get a library card. So like, I mean, maybe I'll end on this is like, yeah, like I'm one of those weird, left-leaning gun-owning guys. But that's the thing. If they were 10 times harder to get, I'd probably be minus one of the ones that I randomly got from someone who just gave it to me for free because there'd be worse laws and they would just ignore them. Like, I don't really know. But like, it was just like, I don't want to try to sell this. It was my dad's. You want to hang on to it? I'm like, I'll give it a good home. And it's like, it doesn't have a serial number on it. Like, well, all the better. But see, I don't have anything like that. But, like, I'm okay with it being harder, because I know that it would be all right. And then maybe perhaps less of the like the Venezuelan hit squads that like, break into like giant apartment complexes full of just sad people and, execute them summarily in an efficiency apartment with that brown carpet, brown carpet, white walls. There's maybe 1.5 bedrooms. The kitchen is that weird little thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like kind of next to it. It's not even big enough for the kitchen has its own back door. Those cool apartments that have like the 2 doors. You use the one, but the other one has all these deadbolts and it goes out to where the trash is or whatever. It's not even one of those. Yeah. There's no way it was one of those. No. It's one of the. It was probably only a little bit nicer than living under the stage in the practice room at Jake's house. And it's like if a Venezuelan hit squad showed up and climbed under Jake's stage to shoot whoever was under there, you'd know that they'd earned it and deserved it. And there's no way, and Jake would just be like, well, they just shot the guy under the stage, and you know, they saw me out there and they were just like, I'm, you know, sorry to bother you, sir. They went home like, you know, it's just fine. It's just, you know, all we really got to do is get a new second guitar player.
The Reverend John Wheeler podcast takes zero responsibility for the words, actions, or ideas of its host, guests, or listeners. Though the people on the screen may at times be speaking directly to you and may occasionally give you direct calls to action, neither Reverend John nor the Alchemical Cocktail Lounge are under any moral or legal obligation to answer for the potentially disastrous repercussions that may arise if you are stupid enough to actually follow the orders of a raving lunatic. Think for yourself and do whatever you want, because you're on your own. If anyone ever tries to sue this podcast, black SUVs will converge on your location in the darkness of night and you will never be seen again. Remember to like and subscribe.